5-Hour Energy helps you get through your crazy on-the-go life. And now it comes in 2 great tropical flavors, strawberry banana and tropical burst. They're delicious and can transport you to a tropical paradise. Try them both, then vote for your favorite at 5hewin.com. You could be on the go to someplace you actually want to go. Offer ends 7/31/20. Terms apply. See www.5hewin.com for details.
St. Patrick's Day tips and fun facts from Paul, Kristen, and Dexter at Total Wine & More.
The custom of bumping glasses with a cheers came from Old Rome. But when in Ireland, sláinte.
Keep cooking simple with an Irish cheddar beer bread, paired with a crisp, cold Chardonnay.
Finish off your feast with an Irish coffee, or Nutty Irishman your guests will crave.
Whether you're hosting or just bringing the wine, Total Wine & More is you covered with 8,000 wines, 3,000 spirits, and 2,500 beers at our always low prices. Sláinte!
This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, a special edition of the Baseline NBA podcast. And hey, it's special simply because this show is specifically dedicated to the events that have taken place over the last 72 hours with regards to the NBA's decision to postpone or temporarily suspend the 2019-2020 NBA regular season and possible postseason play due to the coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, this pandemic, it is slowly now has rapidly from a slow crawl to a very brisk walk has now affected, everywhere you can think of, and every conceivable.
5-Hour Energy helps you get through your crazy on-the-go life. And now it comes in 2 great tropical flavors, strawberry banana and tropical burst. They're delicious and can transport you to a tropical paradise. Try them both, then vote for your favorite at 5hewin.com. You could be on the go to someplace you actually want to go. Offer ends 7/31/20. Terms apply. See www.5hewin.com for details.
Major sport that you can think of, and ultimately the NBA erred on the side of caution, and in an unprecedented moment this past Wednesday decided that after the primetime game, I think leading up to about 10 p.m., they decided to cancel the late night primetime game and any games moving forward because of the coronavirus. And a lot of it is stemmed from the circumstances, the situation that Sean and I will talk about in a moment with regards to Utah Jazz player Rudy Gobert, who is the first NBA player who had been tested positive for the coronavirus. And so let me just go ahead and bring up my man Shaw. Everybody knows who my partner in crime is, Mr. Shaw. I want to get your sentiments, your feelings about what happened at that time. At that moment in time, I was actually, in my bowling league. So some of us actually have a life outside of sitting here talking about sports and basketball and everything like that. But I was in my bowling league and knee deep in the middle of watching, I think it was the Nets versus the Lakers. I can't recall. But either way, the game that we were watching was almost ready to come to an end, and they were making preparations until you had hit me with the text message telling me, say, "Oh crap, I'm watching, the Jazz, and the referees, the officials are basically walking off the court. There's apparently something going on. The game is, literally being postponed, and then next thing we find out, the season is being postponed." So all of that in the span of like 30 minutes, it was just absolutely phenomenal how quickly things just rapidly changed.
100%. Really, it was such an evolving organism and rapid movement by the league in lieu of what they suspect to be a potential case within their association. And they were correct. They moved quickly and in essence set the precedent for all the major sports leagues around the world by a result of that. To date that I can recall, and maybe I'm not as tied in as I need to be, but there are 3 cases in the NBA as we record And I don't know if any other major sports, MLS, NHL, MLB, and the likes, have any cases. NFL obviously as well too. So, but that situation on that evening, watching that unfold, and I just remember it. Again, everyone knows I'm an NBA Twitter nut, and I'm watching, and then all of a sudden I get this little alert like, the referees walked off, so I turn on the game and see that myself or whatever. Then all of a sudden the halftime performers performing in the beginning before the game even starts, and I'm like, well, what's going on? And said, hey, right after that, we've decided to cancel the game. So they gave the fans in OKC a brief concert, I guess, and then sent them home, but all for good reason. And knowing what we know now, the NBA, I think, is just acting a lot better than some would say our government is, in making sure that things get shut down and take the precautions are necessary. But as NBA fans and people who love the game of basketball, we're all hurting right now, but we all want to make sure everybody is safe. As I often say and will always say, real life over basketball 100 times out of 100, and the NBA is doing the right thing right now by suspending the season.
Yeah, and just to excuse me, to clarify, I was watching the Knicks versus the Atlanta Hawks game. So, I know, funny, right? Like people in Jersey still get access to basketball, even though they lost a basketball team. But all jokes aside, I think the seriousness of this situation, I mean, it really got real the moment that every major news outlet, and I'm not just talking ESPN, because every time we talk about sports and major news, everyone's only thing is to either go to ESPN or maybe go to Fox Sports. ABC, NBC, all of them were like on it the moment that the communication had been sent out that the NBA was suspending its season. So it wasn't just something where for only sport fans and for only those who follow sports. Like even the major news networks recognize it. And yes, it was because of the coronavirus, but I think the importance of our understanding why we are trying to follow this. And again, the league was trying to get ahead of this, I think speaks to a much bigger deal. They recognize that their audience is the same audience of people that live the everyday, but they recognize that they absorb what they present to them just as equally as them going on to ABC, NBC, or any other news network, to get information, their local news or whatever the case may be. In some instances, they rely more on what's being disseminated from major outlets like NBA TV and ESPN more so than they do with the other channels. So I think it was, I want to make sure that I give the proper kudos, because in situations like this, it can be communicated in a way where you're only just talking to your only audience. I think they were also speaking to a larger audience, not just sports fans, but everyone alike. Like, this is serious. If we're telling you that we have to shut down one of the most popular sports entertainment things that are available, that are accessible to us and worldwide, then you know that this is something that you should and need to take seriously. And the only way that you can help us is making sure that you help yourselves by recognizing the importance of what we were doing.
Right. And I think it's funny to me in some aspects where people are always going to make light of by that situation because they want to heal, I think, with humor in a lot of ways as well too. And I think there's an appropriate time and space for everything. And we just got to make sure that we understand how to engage and how we want to contact by social distancing, if you will, but by remaining in contact with each other, but in the appropriate manner. And I think that's my take on all of this, with the league necessarily doing what it did what it needs to do. Media outlets followed up, and again, the league set the precedent in some aspects. But now it's kind of just what I saw kind of that same evening when the league decided to make the decision. It was interesting, and it was a mixed bag because jokes were quick to come out, like quick to come out everywhere about Rudy Gobert and what he did, and
we'll get into that in a moment.
And the whole nine. But at the end of the day, the tenor is, listen, this is still a very, very serious situation. And I, for the first time, I think, in I don't know however long, but when it really came down to it, once I saw the league had canceled its season, I actually was, well, to me, this is a world issue. This is a person. This is a life issue right now. So while I'm obviously interested in the NBA and basketball, my attention now is turned to local news and national news. I'm not really watching NBA TV because at the end of the day, well, that's done, because that's what I said. I think, in a previous show, is that we put sports on a pedestal, and we all do it, and maybe we just kind of do it subconsciously. But at the end of the day, these guys are still human. They're still players, and they can get hurt, they bleed, they can get sick. Everything can happen to them. And 2020 has showed us all of that. You can't take anything for granted. So we're in a situation now where we've just, we've got to remain diligent, and pay attention to everything happening around us. And one way or another, hopefully, we'll be back to normalcy in some aspect, but it's gonna be a while. And I applaud the league for setting the precedent, and then for all the medias and all the other outlets, and then all the other leagues around the world to kind of follow along and make sure that the information got out there in a timely and accurate manner.
You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, a special edition of the Baseline NBA podcast, as we're talking about the coronavirus epidemic and how it's impacting the NBA season. So I want to read the letter, the communication that was sent out by Adam Silver to the fans, and really just notifying everybody with the status of the NBA season. But I want to add something to a point that you just alluded to regarding, the NBA's quick and decisive response to things, because, a lot is going to be made regarding, the perceptions about how sport is reflected upon when you have a league like the NBA, which is now, primarily a players' league. And Adam Silver made primarily a decision that was in the best interest. People will look at it and say, well, he made the decision that's in the best interest of the business of basketball. But you have to also understand that the business of basketball is driven through the players who are helping to build that brand night in, night out, on and off the court. And if he is making a decision that's in the best interest of preserving these quality athletes to be able to one day get back on that basketball court, he has no doubt that whatever revenue may be lost in the short term will be made over tenfold, because he has made the right decisions. And sometimes those decisions can go against the interest of what the owners that facilitate the arenas for the guys that come out there and play, and for the fans to come out and have their 2.5, 3 hours of distraction from the everyday rummages of the world. Unlike the NFL, where if it was left up to the commissioner, the decision would probably come to the owners, and a majority of those owners will probably figure out some kind of way to keep things moving where they don't think they're going to lose money at the expense of losing players. That's how quickly things can change. And I think when you see a commissioner who really has his finger, and I'm not saying this to diss a guy like Roger Goodell, but what I'm saying is clearly Adam Silver understands the dynamics. And I think it can't be said enough that when you make some of these decisions where you're putting the human value of what this game means, and the players that are involved and the owners that put into it, it speaks volumes on how quickly that kind of sediment and that kind of action can permeate for people down to the most common person to make the self-sacrifice to do the right thing, to pay it forward. And I think that can't be overlooked. I'm not trying, to kiss high praises to Adam Silver. What I'm saying is it's these type of decision-making, very decisive, very focused, very, very linear to the point, that I think is going to help us continue to move forward to get through this situation. Because the way that he's doing it, he's saying, I'm not just doing it for just what's in front of me right here. I'm doing it for what's around me. And only what's around me is going to also help to further that message for other people. And I think that's something that has to be amplified in what we're talking about.
So one of the things that I definitely want to touch on, and maybe even backing up that point a little bit more, is the fact that I don't remember which expert said it, but one of them out there was to the point of you may think we're overreacting, but it's hellacious and a hell of a lot worse if we underreact. And I think in the NBA's case, that's what they did. So obviously, knowing or suspecting that a player might be infected, if they continue to go on as business as usual, they'd be negligent as hell and subject to all kinds of fines and lawsuits and the like. And that at the end of the day is just not worth it. I mean, and obviously we'll talk about kind of the business aspect of all of this and the bottom line. But with the NBA having the mishap with China earlier in the year, BRI is definitely going to be down. And yes, suspending games impacts the bottom line, but you cannot have that and the public humiliation that would come about had they not done what they did. And then it gets out later on at some point that, hey, a player is infected, and they just kind of kept things going, kept it pushing. And then you just think about, that 6 degrees of separation and all that, all the teams that played Utah within that time span, all of them right now as we speak are quarantined. So, it's really, really and truly, it was the right thing to do. In some ways, their hands were tied, and they're smart and they're astute and they understood that, and they weren't going to go ahead and just kind of force through like I think some entities are trying to do, knowing what they knew and the backlash that would have came about had to continue to push forward.
All right, so let's take a moment to, kind of dig in a little bit on the communication that Adam Silver provided to the fans, NBA fans, and just really people in general. If they went to NBA.com and they saw the communique that was provided, and it goes as follows. Dear NBA fans, as you know, we have temporarily suspended our season in response to the coronavirus pandemic. We made this decision to safeguard the health and well-being of fans, players, everyone connected to our game, and the general public. This hiatus will last at least 30 days, and we intend to resume the season if and when it becomes safe for all concerned. In the meantime, we will continue to coordinate with infectious disease and public health experts along with the government officials to determine safe protocols for resuming our games. As we develop the appropriate course for future NBA games and events, we will keep you informed of any changes as soon as they happen. Tickets already purchased for a postponed game will be honored when the game is rescheduled. If games are not played or played in an empty arena, teams will work with fans on a credit for a future game or a refund. We encourage you to visit NBA.com for the latest news, updates, and interactive features to stay connected to the game. You'll also find guidelines on how to keep yourself and your family safe and healthy. This remains a complicated and rapidly evolving situation that reminds us that we are all part of a broader society with the responsibility to look out for one another. This is what the NBA will continue to do, and we are grateful for your understanding and for being the best fans in sports. Sincerely, Adam Silver, NBA Commissioner. When I read something like this, Shaw, two things jump out at me. Number one, the game component of this is to your point. We want to make sure that our players are healthy and that we are not exacerbating a situation that lends to the pandemic. The other thing that I think is equally important is him saying to the fans, listen, we understand you've invested a lot of money. You want to come out and you want this part of your life to still be normal. We can't guarantee that to you, at least for the next 30 days. But what we're asking you to do is be patient with us, because we will do everything in our power to try and bring you back that normalcy as soon as we can. And when you talk to people in that way, even in their midst of a panic, this is the kind of communication that helps give them a sense of calm, that they know that whoever is working with the NBA or the NBA is working with are doing whatever they can to get as much information as possible to give them and you the peace of mind required that eventually will get things back to where they need to be. And so this, to me, again, it just lends to the idea that if you think that, we should just just completely ignore it, blow through it like it's nothing. Two things could have happened. On a greater scale, they could be helping create a further problem to flattening the curve of this pandemic because of the fact that the way that the NBA is structured and the freedoms from which guys travel back and forth and do things, there is no certainty that they won't or will be contracting or passing the virus on to other people, especially since the understanding of how this virus evolves and mutates and how it's passes through individuals and things of that nature is still not been solidified. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you want to make sure that all sports across the board is communicating in that kind of way to their fan. No matter whether you like basketball or you don't like basketball, it's the kind of communication that to me speaks volumes in the sense that even the players themselves are on the same page about what Adam Silver is trying to communicate to everyone.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't want to overdo it, with I think what the league is, what they're trying to do. And everyone is just trying to make sure that they stay in the right mind state, and the NBA is no different, right? And right now we're just trying to take the precautions necessary to be back when we can be back. But at the end of the day, you have to protect yours and understand and really make sure that the situation is taken seriously. And that's what the league has done here, 100%. And as we record and talk, and I mean, the news just continues to be very, very fluid. 30 days minimum, is kind of what he discussed. The CDC is recommending nothing be scheduled for talking to all our event organizers that for the next 8 weeks, nothing happens with 50 people or more. So that puts the NBA at roughly May 10th as we record now. So it's a little more than 30 days, right? So we'll see what ends up happening as things continue to unfold. It's a recommendation. It's not a mandate. And I think the league and everybody is going to take things as they go. But again, just forward thinking right now and try to do the right thing.
All right. So let's really quick, because I want to get past this one part. I mean, obviously, kind of digging a little bit about the circumstances that happened with Rudy Gobert. And then I want to kind of talk about, what the NBA players are doing in their own way to let everybody know that you may not play the game with the other guys that are on that team or, are wearing a jersey, but you're still family. If you work in the arenas, if you have something to do with elevating the game that they love to play and putting it on a spotlight. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to get into the situation that I think has resonated with how we found out regarding a player testing positive for the coronavirus, right? So I'm sure everybody has seen that it was Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, center of the Utah Jazz, who had tested positive for the coronavirus. He's the first person that was tested positive. And apparently, what was presented through Adrian Wojnarowski and a lot of other, NBA insiders was that Rudy Gobert had been careless in his walk through and around the media and things of that nature with regards to touching microphones and chairs and players. And I guess the sentiment or the understanding is that he was not treating the perception about what was going on with this virus seriously. And for that, he wound up being tested. He did not come to the game that Wednesday night that they were scheduled to play. But when he found out that he had tested positive for the coronavirus, clearly that meant that there was no way that the rest of the team is going to be able to participate and play this game, because the immediate concern is getting everyone else on that team tested, as well as anyone who had been in contact with Rudy Gobert during, whatever particular period in which all of this was taking place. So obviously now because of this, Rudy Gobert is straight up getting, torched on social media. Not just being torched, but literally also receiving death threats because of the circumstances that have happened. And I don't know how you may have felt about this, Shaw. Number one, I felt bad for Rudy Gobert. I think he learned a very cruel lesson that maybe you can get away with some of the things you do, in France, but some of the stuff that you try and do around here, that just don't fly. Okay. And especially even if you think that where you're at is in a small market, we now live in a Twitterverse. And in a Twitterverse, it is a completely different world and something that's just happening, out there in the mountainous areas of Utah. Okay. And he made a mistake. He made a mistake of not taking what was being talked about regarding this virus seriously. But I don't think it warranted the level of vitriol that was being sent his way. And I think part of that comes down to the way that we were disseminating the information about how Rudy Gobert found out about the virus and how he was contracting the virus to other people. And I say this because we have to be very careful now, even in this situation, in the climate that we're in, that we should be looking for information, not rumors and gossip. And as the media, the responsibility should be to project the important information first, not form it in a way where it looks like we're trying to place blame on somebody and we don't know the circumstances by which that person may be at fault for what has happened. And I just think that those two things that have to be looked at and have to be dissected properly, because by making Rudy Gobert a target, you're channeling the wrong type of response that we as individuals need to have about learning and understanding and getting past the fact that this virus is here. He is not the reason that the virus is here. You know what I'm saying? And it just really got to me seeing the way that we were characterizing what had happened with Rudy Gobert through the media, not through the silly people that do tweets and that like to stir up controversy, but the media people's projection of what had happened with Rudy Gobert. I don't feel it was as accurate as it needed to be, and it didn't help the situation either.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, hey, again, they show the video, him touching. And so in some ways, I feel bad for him. But at the end of the day, here's where we're at least in my opinion. He was negligent, and he didn't take it seriously. And he made a joke about it, and, by doing what he did. And that, it has some serious repercussions. And luckily, he's young enough. Luckily, his impacted teammate, Donovan Mitchell, is young enough, and they look like they'll be fine and they'll make a recovery. But as a result, Christian Wood, who played against Gobert within the last week, of that incident, has also been, tested positive. So at the end of the day, when it boils down to is he just didn't do the right thing. And while he's still a young man and he was in essence stupid and made a mistake, people want to vilify and crucify him now for that. And again, he was wrong 100%. But at the end of the day, I just feel like there needs to be some level of, I don't know, say sympathy or compassion, maybe not even understanding. But,
I agree.
But there has to be something. So he's got to recover, and it's going to take some time for that to take place. At the end of the day, and I don't want to get too far down a political line, so to speak, in some aspects, but he's a black man in America who made a mistake, right? And you just hopefully he can recover from that. So again, I don't absolve him of what he did.
Absolutely.
But we've got to be able to move on from that, and hopefully the reach of his negligence isn't going to be as widespread as it is in certain areas of the United States and obviously abroad.
Right. And I just want to make sure, especially from what you're just saying and also from what I was just saying earlier before, where my ire is concentrated on is the media's responsibility to make sure that we're not sensationalizing the real message that has to be put out here. We can talk about we can talk about the carelessness. I think it's just in the way that we're choosing to use the words, as if to say, oh, there was so much recklessness here. You could say he he obviously did not pay attention and understand what was going on. And then to say, because when we use those type of words, those could be trigger words. You know, like his intent was malicious or whatever the case may be. No, that I don't think it was obviously malicious, but clearly he did not take everything that was seriously going on, right?
Yeah,
you know,
negligent but not malicious. Right?
Exactly. And I think that that's where we have to be careful with, as the media, how we're projecting this. We know when somebody is BSing, you know what I'm saying? BSing around, and we know when somebody is doing something that is so damn egregious, you know what I'm saying? That it merits the idea of us questioning whether or not this person, you know, should be around other people, should even be enjoying the fact that they're playing the game of basketball and things of that nature. Again, I just want to make sure that people understand, and I'm saying this because even ourselves, Shaw, I have my frustrations about things that are happening or not happening in the right way. But if I am going to be in the journalism space, if I'm going to be in a journalism community, I have to make sure that I remain objective and not subjective. So if my goal is to get information out there to people, it would be to make sure that it's information to inform, not to inflame. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes I think we miss the mark by doing that because we want to, you know, we want to spike up more ratings. We want to generate more controversy. And now's not a time for us to be looking at that aspect of it. And more importantly, to what happened to Rudy Gobert, I feel like a lot of that is misplaced. Rudy Gobert made a mistake. He obviously is a prime example of someone who did not heed what everyone was trying to say. Wash your hands, do this, that, and third, social distancing. And because of that, he now made the situation worse. You know what I'm saying? But let's not go overboard and say, oh, he wanted to do this. He was intentionally trying to infect other people. You know, he obviously don't give a damn about America. Like, there was all sorts of kind of craziness that was being projected out there, which I just felt like was completely missing the mark and the point. But part of the problem is when we as the media don't take that responsibility to make sure that we are informing people of that, that's also exacerbating the situation as well. Now, on the good note, in recognizing Rudy Gobert's error, he himself has made it a promise and a pledge to contribute at least $500,000 in relief services to people who are going to be impacted by this pandemic through the coronavirus. And I would say, whether you like it or you don't like it, that's somebody that clearly understood the error of his ways and is showing you that he doesn't want to be a part of the problem, but want to be a part of the solution.
Well, so I'll be a little bit of a cynic, you know, to that. So we'll have to talk about kind of all the players, right? So as a result, this now comes into the league's bottom line, and all the people who are impacted by the association. I mean, we make a small amount of money off the league through our coverage of the Baseline NBA podcast. You know, we're impacted. But what about those who work in the arena? Those who work outside the arena, small businesses and the like, you know, people selling t-shirts, waters, everything. They're all impacted. So what ended up happening, I want to say it was Kevin Love first, and Blake Griffin, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Zion Williamson, all decided in some way or another they were going to help the workers and the people that are impacted by the games not taking place now for the next at least 30 days. Does 5 times the amount as a result of that, because at the end of the day, he's ground zero for the league right now. And again, that's maybe putting it bluntly and maybe overselling it some, but everyone is blaming him as a result. So to his credit, he didn't just say, well, I'll just do what everybody else is doing. He said, let me try to go above and beyond and try to help out more. And sure, you know, I'm one of those people who always think you just can't throw money at the situation. But this is a situation where money definitely is going to help those who are now not being able to work as a result of the league stoppage that is taking place. So, you know, kudos to him for at least trying to do what he did. It could have been worse. He could have did nothing. He could have just gave 100,000 or whatever, and then people still would have been pointing him out. But again, there's just so many layers to all of this, fam. Like, there's so many things. Like, there was people going on Twitter, and I didn't think that deeply into it, but when you saw some of the players going out there, I was just commending them for what they're doing. But then people were now attacking the owners and saying, well, they need to be, they're the ones with the deeper pockets and they should be taking care of their employees and such and such. It shouldn't be the players. And that it's a minefield. And I don't ever really want to tell people what to do with their money. And I do believe there's a certain level of social responsibility that we all have and need to be cognizant of. But I'm not going to look at the next person and say, hey, well, you did this and you didn't, and I'm going to vilify you for it.
Right.
Again, I think that you have to sit there with your own conscience and deal with one way or the other. But I mean, people were getting killed, especially when Zion came out and did it. And everyone, I was the first one to say, like, damn, he doesn't really have deep pockets like that. Yeah, he's on this rookie scale contract. Sure, he was the number one pick, but he's not bringing it in like, Kevin Love, who's made, hundreds of $1 million over the years, so to speak. And then people are like, well, Benson needs to. I was like, yo, man, it's really, really trippy right now. We got to be careful, how and who we're pointing fingers at. And I'm not saying that it's not right to question certain things, but we got to be careful. And in my aspect, that the volatility, the sensitivity of this situation doesn't now make us maybe a little bit more angry than we need to necessarily be at times. You know what I mean? And kind of just pointing fingers left way or the other. Let humanity take care of humanity. Let's try to do the right things where we can. Those who are able to give will. And if they don't, I don't want to judge people for not doing it at the end of the day. Because what ends up happening, and this is something that needs to be stated, and this is why, and shameless plug, I'll say here, so I love Close Up 360, the site that I write for, Jared Zwirling and Josh Martin, so much, because we point out the community aspect, all the giving and all the things, or at least we try to, that takes place. We don't know what people do on a regular basis. We don't know all the things that these general managers, that these owners, that these players do regularly to give back to the community and to help people. So I don't want to sit here with, on a high horse and, with the stick and pointing, hey, and pointing my finger and say, shame on you for not doing, because a lot of these people do a lot that we don't even see on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm going to echo those sentiments in saying that until we get to a point where we actually highlight more of the good in people than the bad, we're going to be stuck in that same kind of space. I will say, though, whether or not we think that the actions of some of the people are altruistic or there's a hidden motive or agenda, I think just the idea that they're doing something, I think it is what just needs to be, disseminated to the masses. It's interesting, Shaw. Right now, and I don't want to get political, but right now we are in a society where a lot of things are reactive than proactive. Okay, maybe we'll get ourselves back to that point. Maybe we'll actually start surrounding ourselves around people that believe in progress and believe in promotion, right? Than devotion. But wherever it is that we fall in that space here and now, I think it has to be highlighted that sometimes we don't give enough people time for them to figure this out, because the instinct should be you should have been doing that, or you should have been doing that already. And if you're not doing it, then you're a part of a group of people. You're part of a state of mind, or a part of that type of society that I loathe and I hate, because no matter what I do will always be overshadowed because you've got more of whatever it is that I seem to have less of. And it's understandable, part of that frustration, because I don't think that this is a hard thing, right? I think that collectively everybody in their own way should be trying to do their part to help us get past this and to help other people get past this. The problem is that we just don't know, right? And I think that's part of the frustration. And I agree with you. We have to exercise a little humility, and we also have to exercise a little bit of knowing that it's okay to not know everything and everybody. You know what I'm saying? But I will say this, though. If you are somebody who comes out and provides more pushback than progress in what's happening, I will have to scrutinize you. I will have to look at you a little bit more skeptically. Case in point to this thing regarding Rudy Gobert. If all that we had to work on regarding Rudy Gobert was the antics of what he did at the time, not knowing about the fact that he was tested positive for having the coronavirus, and that he then, contract like the virus. He passed the virus on to Donovan Mitchell and to other players and things of that nature. And he does not respond in a manner that shows that he understood the error in his ways. And again, to the point that I'm making, wants to be more of the solution and not the problem. And I don't care what the motivation is, if it's to save face or whatever. The fact that you're just doing something. If that wasn't the case, I would be all go and go bear. Okay. I mean, I would make it my personal pursuit to make his life miserable, in understanding that he represents the type of people that I loathe, that it's okay for them to do the type of things that they're doing with very little understanding that you are a part of a bigger, equation in this world. And it's not about the money. It's about it's your approach to how you see people, things, and around you, and how you progress in your everyday life. And it doesn't have to be at the magnitude of the fact that this is the coronavirus. This could be something as simple as how he responds to journalists who ask him questions. I would even go down to that point to start, like, everything I would then start backtracking. Is he really like this type of person? Does he really get this kind of way, act in this kind of manner? You have to scrutinize those things, because it then shows a pattern. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he is someone that recognizes and acknowledges that that's not how he is and who he was, that was a mental lapse in judgment, I can at least acknowledge that. And the fact that he moves forward to do those things, the fact that players move forward to do those things, I agree with you. I think that we have to wait and see how everyone else in their own way is responding to what they're doing on their part to help us move forward beyond this pandemic.
All right, and then that's what it's all about. At some point, we just gotta figure out how we move forward. Once we get the all clear or the pseudo clear or whatever it is. I mean, there's so many aspects, bro. Like, I think about, obviously we've talked a little bit about the money and the business and how this impacts things right now, and if and when the season resumes, what that looks like. I mean, that's probably another show type stuff,
Right.
Do they do a truncated schedule? Do they just cut it off and go straight to the playoffs? Spencer, did we put out there, well, we should go to a March Madness format? There's so many layers to that. But even in this interim time, like, I'm thinking about, I don't know, a guy like Ben Simmons. Well, he's trying to rehab, right? Well, he can't rehab now and get with, he needs to be quarantined and needs to be staying away. So all those things, like, you have to do things with your own spaces. You're just not supposed to go around and be around people. If and when we do get back, what ends up happening do we have kind of like a mini training camp again? And do we play like some exhibition type games to get everyone back in shape? Like, it just continues to go down the list and the things that we need to think about and the things that we need to do. But first and foremost, it's about making sure that our arenas, our locker rooms, and our players are safe. And we can keep things clean and sanitized on a regular basis. And that's where the biggest point of focus is definitely going to be. There are certain things I think that, and it may seem very, very small to some people, but a team like the Miami Heat, I know, and I'm sure there's others around the league, that they don't have a physical ticket system anymore. You have to do everything through your phone electronically. So in theory, and there's no touching of paper and passing that to an usher or to anybody who's checking it in. They scan your phone. They don't touch your phone. They scan it, and the barcode, and you walk right in. And I think all policies and procedures are things that we're going to be looking at throughout the course of the rest of time right now. I think really and truly, like, this really opens up kind of a Pandora's box. And I think there are going to be some very, very unique and maybe even some eccentric theories that come about what we're going to do as we move forward. But we really just have got to try to stay as calm as possible for the interim time, get through this period and then figure out what we're going to do next.
And I think the other thing as well, too, Shaw, is that other ventures in which the NBA has its hands in are also going to be impacted. The NBA's global operations, NBA Africa, NBA China, all of these ventures also have to come to a halt. And in some way, shape, or form, how those ventures are going to be able to resume is going to be an interesting question that has to be addressed. It's not just something where it's to say, hey, like this is, like a postponement for a couple of days. All of these things are going to be impacted because there's obviously a schedule by which they wanted to get things moving. Certain tournaments, certain conferences, things of that nature is going to play. The NBA 2K League has obviously been postponed, and yourself and you, myself and you, we're going to be dabbling in that space, in short order soon. And so the circumstances by which, what happens now with the league, with everything being pushed back, is everything still planning to be on point and still to be scheduled? Let's keep in mind as well too, many of these gaming clubs are affiliated to the NBA teams, and if the NBA teams have stopped their operations, it's also impacting the operations for the gaming clubs, for the 2K League, right? So all of this stuff, it's connected. It's not just, oh, well, one thing stops, so everything else can continue to go. No, even at the expense of the league's ability to still provide some form of entertainment for the avid fan and listener and watcher, there are things that they're not going to be able to do anything until they get more information and until there is some level of progression provided to say that the coronavirus has been contained and it will no longer be a threat, to the fan base and the people who continue to support the league and any sport genre moving forward.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to know about kind of in your estimation, right? At what point, if there's a point, would there need to be kind of just, hey, cancel it all? What point do you think right now, and maybe it's putting you on the spot a little bit, that would be too late to say, you know what? 2020 didn't happen. That's just a blank space. We have no March Madness as it is right now. So, men's, women's, all that is ordered. That's just going away. It just won't happen. There'll be no national champion, at least that's my understanding of what's happening. At what point do you think the league maybe has to look at that? Is it, if it's June and we're still having these conversations where they're still saying, no gathering of people? Is it July? Is it August? At what point? Because then you got to roll back into starting up again next season, right? What point does 2020 just effectively get canceled?
I think at the end of April. I think if by April 30th, there is no signs of there being a solidified, that at that point, we have to assume that all NBA players have been properly tested. Let's say, and I know, because we obviously only have so much time to have this kind of conversation, Sean, but let's be realistic about a couple of things. Part of the reason why I think Adam Silver shut this down is because not everybody has been tested for the coronavirus yet. And that would include NBA players, not just, the staff and the arena staff workers and, people in management for the teams, even the owners. I don't think that there have been owners who have been tested for the coronavirus. And I would think it does not matter whether you are around someone who had the virus or didn't have the virus. The whole idea is knowing where you currently sit with the fact that you're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, you need to know whether or not you're healthy and have not contracted the virus. So the fact that not everybody in the NBA at this moment in time has been tested, I think would have lent to the fact that this NBA season was going to be suspended regardless, because you got to test everybody. So my thing is, right now, they don't have, and I'm speaking about this, yes, I'm bringing some politics into this, but they haven't even brought out enough tests for people to go out and get tested, right? And it's funny because there was a few tweets already saying once Donovan Mitchell had announced the fact that he had tested positive for the virus, the first thing that came up from people was, wait a minute, how the hell did these guys get access to the test and I haven't? They weren't even thinking about whether or not, their favorite player did or didn't get the virus. He was like, how the hell did he get access to the test and we in our area still don't have access to it? So that still has to be addressed. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why I'm saying if things do not trend in a positive manner where we can find that there is accessibility for everyone to be tested so we know where we currently sit with the status of this virus, as far as on a national scale, not just global, but just a national scale, by April 30th, I cannot realistically see how Adam Silver can continue to keep pushing and pushing and pushing this NBA season to where now the only thing that you have left is playoffs, which isn't going to be legitimate because there's still question marks regarding the teams that are still needing to participate. How many regular season games do you give those teams that still have a chance to get themselves in the top 16 to participate? And then you turn around and say to have a quality product on the basketball court for a run at the championship, that these top teams who haven't played in excesses of over some month and a half now, if we're talking about this realistically, that it's going to be watchable television for people to consume. It's just too difficult for me to see that. Way too much involved. If by April 30th they're in a space where they feel like this is going to be turned around and that they can get things moving, I think that they call the season. I think it's a shortened season and they just call it.
Well, I mean, that actually would not give enough time based on even what we discussed earlier. The CDC saying 8 weeks from now, that's, second week of May is when you'd be able to resume. A lot of owners, according to Woj and Malika Andrews, a lot of the owners feel like they'd get back to business sometime in June, but with nobody in the stands. I just happened to catch something on television the other day, and again, I'm gonna make light of the situation, but it tripped me out. I happened to turn on, I think, Fox or whatever it was, and John Cena from the WWE was on with whatever announcer is there now. And I legitimately thought it was like an interview, right? Like, they're just talking to John Cena about whatever, the WWE and whatever. But I realized he's like in full monologue. He's delivering a speech as if there were thousands of fans in attendance. And if you look around the arena, it's empty. It's this announcer and John Cena giving his whole spiel as if hundreds and thousands or whatever, thousands of people were in the arena. And it was awkward. It was weird. It was a very surreal thing to kind of even see, because obviously the WWE is a bit of acting in that of itself anyway. But to see him try to do that performance in front of nobody was very, very eye-opening and catching. And I think the NBA, just for the sake of playing its season, that would be something that I'd have to see it to believe it. You know what I mean? I'd have to see 5-on-5 with nobody in the stands and referees just kind of running up and down, what that would look and feel like, because it was bananas to watch. I think even just from the WWE's standpoint. But again, to your point, if you're talking about, late April, if the CDC is saying, nothing past 8 weeks, that puts us past that time. The league is now already considering, I think, canceling the G League season. They're going to pay the players the rest of their wages for that, but the G League season looks like that'll be canceled. It was supposed to go until March 28th, with the playoffs starting a couple days after that and finishing up sometime in April. So looks like it's going away completely. The NBA, being obviously the big brother and the bigger fish in this, they're going to wait some things out here. But I think we're nearing a point already. And it's, again, when I tell you it's an evolving and consistently moving target, over the course of our hour show, things have changed already. So who knows what happens by the time we mix this down and put it out there, what the new mandate or the new situation will be. So all I can say is, everybody, please, please, please stay tuned to the news. Continue to keep your hygiene up as much as possible, and let's just try to be good to each other, man, because this is craziness that is happening around our world, let alone the NBA by itself.
All right, well, let's be realistic as well, too, Shaw. The NBA had, 1988, 1999 lockout, right? That was the third lockout. Before we got into the 21st century, and then the 2011 NBA lockout, right, where that was like around 161 days. And the season did not begin until November the 1st, right? And the season was reduced to 66 games. And so I guess that's the reason why I'm saying, the league has evolved even from then. And this is a situation that is outside the purview of the players and the owners and the league itself to be able to monitor and maintain. There are too many parameters, I think, that won't be in the hands of the league to just turn around and say we're going to be able to get things moving in the same kind of manner. Now, what may facilitate that, though, is if there are assurances and things in place that all they have to focus on is getting operations back up and having a protocol in place for the 32 teams to be able to be in that space to do it. I'm sorry, 30. To have those teams ready to go when that time presents itself. But I just find it to be very difficult because right now we're not in a situation where that looks like that's as a clear picture for us to make that assessment. And I don't know how long you can continue to keep pushing, because now you're starting to leak into NBA draft. You're leaking into the next season, right? You're leaking into, just for the sake of players or whatever who feel like, no, I want us to win. I want us to do what we can to determine a champion before the NBA season should start, for 2020 to 2021. It's just, I don't want to say that they should have to take an L, but if the prioritization, and it could be based on how the players may feel about this, Shaw, this could be, again, something that in future conversations and discussions regarding collective bargaining agreements should be, like, these are the type of things that would have to be addressed. Is it important that you still finish the season for things like this? But if I'm Adam Silver, I got to know when, hey, this season just basically take an L. And if the player sentiments are in that zone, say, hey, it's not worth it, let's just hit the reset button, and so we can have a better product by the time that everything gets rolled out for the 2020-21 season. To me, it might be more worth it for the NBA than risking to try and bum rush everything now and, run the risk of players either getting injured, things not functioning properly. It could be way too much. And I don't know, maybe I'm giving too short of a leash when I say April the 30th. Maybe they extend it to the end of May. But whatever it is, it has to be within the next 60 to 90 days. And if in that time frame we're not seeing any progression that makes it seem like sports is going to be back to normal, I don't think that you risk this season at the expense of greater damage to the league and everything that needs to happen in order to get things back to that space for the sake of a couple of months in a playoffs.
Right, and I do trust that the league, while it's the root of necessarily all this aspect, but definitely of what they try to do, they are concerned about their future earnings as well. And as I said, they don't want to have political nightmares and drama surrounding and clouding over the league for the next amount of months by doing the wrong thing. So if it's going to cost them millions of dollars to protect their brand, their image for the upcoming years, so to speak. Again, it's easy for me to sit here and in podcast studio and say, well, then you do it, because I'm not losing millions of dollars as a result of it. But I think the bottom line is exactly that. It's the bottom line. You got to think about what the future of the brand is going to look like if you make the wrong decisions today.
Wow, man, so much happening, man. So much to discuss with this episode. And it's just been phenomenal. The topics that come up, even as we're speaking, and things that have to obviously be put into play, even while we're still waiting, with regards to the state of play for the NBA moving forward. It's just phenomenal and remarkable. And I can't believe that we're here, but we are. And the only thing I guess we can hope for is that we continue to move in a particular fashion where we begin to see some of these questions being answered, and the answers are actually positive assessments that will get us soon enough back to the normalization of watching the NBA being played again.
Well, sir, I can't say any better than that. And I hope for our fans and listeners, they understand, the gravity that is taking place. And we're just trying to do our part. As people who cover the league, we'd be remiss if we didn't have an in-depth conversation about what is taking place. I'm sure some of our listeners are waiting and been anxious to hear from us. Trying not to go on too many Twitter rants, so that's not where you're going to find a lot of yours or my kind of hot takes for the most part. We're going to use this platform to kind of get some things out there. But in short, I just want to say, continue to be good, be well, be good to each other, take care of yourselves. And again, one more time, real life over basketball 100 times out of 100. So hopefully we're back to some sense of normalcy soon, but it looks like we're going to be, going through this for a couple weeks, months, maybe even, and we've just got to be diligent and stay the course.
Most definitely. Once again, we'd like to thank you and yours for hopping on board with this special edition of The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. As usual, baby, we're not stopping. We're going to continue to keep talking about the hot button topics of the NBA, so make sure that you keep us posted, keep us on your recommendation, and we'll continue to keep pumping out more episodes to keep you distracted, well distracted under the current state that's happening right now. For The Baseline, Callie, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Five-Hour Energy helps you get through your crazy on-the-go life. And now it comes in two great tropical flavors, strawberry banana and tropical burst. They're delicious and can transport you to a tropical paradise. Try them both, then vote for your favorite at 5hewin.com. You could be on the go to someplace you actually want to go. Offer ends 7/31/20. Terms apply. See www.5hewin.com for details.
St. Patrick's Day tips and fun facts from Paul, Kristen, and Dexter at Total Wine & More.
The custom of bumping glasses with the cheers came from old Rome. But when in Ireland, sláinte.
Keep cooking simple with an Irish cheddar beer bread, paired with a crisp, cold Chardonnay.
Finish off your feast with an Irish coffee or nutty Irishman your guests will crave.
Whether you're hosting or just bringing the wine, Total Wine & More has you covered with 8,000 wines, 3,000 spirits, and 2,500 beers at our always low prices. Sláinte!